Welcome to the final video of the series. If you've seen the previous videos, you saw how I used the foam clay on the silicone mold to make these casts. So that's how I made this final ape mask. I've done casts before with resin. This is the first time I'm doing it with the foam clay. And it captured the details and the wrinkles pretty well. This is a little bit blurry, but I'm going to focus it in a second and you'll see. It's not perfect. You could see around the nose, some of the details weren't exactly copied over too well, but it should be good enough because I'm going to do some fake texturing with acrylics later. After that, I painted it over with 2 coats of matte medium, and in the interior, that's nylon. That's a nylon mesh, just to give it a little bit strength. And I'm going to paint over it. I'm just using some cheap Dick Blick acrylic paint. And a couple of colors. That was a yellow, a brown, maybe a red. I'm going to thin it out a little. Sorry for the traffic noise. I'm going to thin it out a little just because the first layer I want it to stick right on. Doesn't need to be too thick. And I'm using cheap brushes, 99 cents. There's no reason to use good brushes for this kind of stuff. I'm not doing a painting. These are like kids' craft brushes. You could buy like a dozen for $8. So I'm going to speed it up because the actual process took about 33 minutes. So if you know acrylic paints, you know they dry darker than when you're actually applying. So you always have to keep that in mind. And this first coat, it's just going to be the medium. So you always start from, or I always start from middle to dark to light. And it works for me. Like I said, because it's wet and shiny, it's hard to judge. I could have used some matte acrylic paints, but I think to make it more lifelike, it works better if it's a little bit glossy. Usually for this first coat, you don't want it to be too even, because if it's too even, it flattens everything out, and I think it makes it look more realistic if your paint isn't completely mixed. So there's some dark parts, there's still some yellow that sticks out. I mean, this is fun because you don't have to be too neat either. And you could fix a lot of your sculpting mistakes. So I'm recording this at about like 1 a.m. at night, and there's still all these trucks outside. It's amazing. So this monkey mask, this ape face, it was supposed to be a Halloween costume for a few years ago that I just never, pandemic. Okay, so that first layer is dry. So this next layer, I'm going to go darker just to paint up the crevices. And this is very thinned out paint. So I'm going to put that in, the dark paint. That's Michelangelo. That's another foam thing. So after I put in the dark paint, the really thinned out dark paint, I just dab it out. I dab out the surface paint. So whatever is left in the crevices are nice and dark. So it brings out the wrinkles and the textures. it weathers it. Could you say weather? That's for like machines, right? Not for ape faces. So you could see the actual mass shrunk. The foam shrinks a little bit as it dries. So by the time I took it out of the mold to now, it actually shrunk. It still fits my face, so we're good. You can see I popped in a couple of nose holes, showing you what colors I use. It's mostly black. Black, umber, a little bit of white, a little bit of red. That's a cadmium red hue. It's not real cadmium red. Using the same brush. More dabbing. That's just a bounty towel. But, you know, the paper towels are actually good because they act like little sponges, making the texture as you dab. This is more of what I did in the beginning with the thin paint, just to fill in those dark circles around the eyes. So after that dark part is drying or is applied, I'm going to try to do a little bit of the highlights. Imagine I could paint that fast in real life. That would be amazing. I actually had a teacher in college that could paint pretty fast. Amazingly fast. This is how I paint if I drank a lot of coffee. So I overdid a little bit with that highlight. It's knocking out some of the colors I'd put in. But again, this will darken. Like however crazy this looks right now, it's gonna darken. See? I flipped over the screen, or I flipped over the mask, but you could see how much darker it got as it dried. So I'm putting in more yellow just to bring out some of the bumpy parts. That's a little too bright. So it's always a back and forth. Highlight, midtone, shadows. I know this ape face isn't going to be too bright. So I'm going to have it in my mind that I'm going to knock some of this color down. I don't want it to be too saturated with color, and I don't want too much white. See how red everything looks? To knock that down, I'm going to have to put some green. Or put more red. Go the other direction. Now it looks like it's wearing lipstick, which is okay, but it's not exactly fitting. I just want to see how it looked on there, and I kind of liked how it looked. I liked that red on the mask. So later on, I'm going to use more to make some designs around his face. Its face. So here I'm going over the red with some greenish color. See, the red comes back. I don't know why that Michelangelo's down there. I think that's just for inspiration. Thinking of making a full-size Michelangelo head mask. Oh, that's my nephew over there. Okay, so I'm going to draw some triangles over his eyes. Just because it looks cool. But you could see when it dries, the acrylic paint, it blends blends with the paint that's already on there. And it just happens. It's like little accidents. I don't know if I planned it to do that, but if you use it enough, you kind of figure what happens, like how dark it's gonna get. So I know the big focus on this mask is going to be the brow area and the nose. So I just want to highlight that a little bit more. That's some dirty water. So I'm just doing a little bit of touching up at this point because I'm almost done. You could do a lot of this stuff with a toothbrush and just splatter some paint on there, little splatters. And I don't remember if I did that on here. I might have just took the brush and flicked some paint on, which does the same thing. With the toothbrush, you have more control. Yeah, that's not symmetrical at all. But here is the final look without it being sped up. But you can see the texture and the color. And I will be wearing this at some point and scaring people. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.